All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the Great Resignation. My name is Seth Davies, and I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I am joined today by Tricia Crabtree-Votino, who is coming to you from Raleigh, North Carolina, and Tonda Tan, who is joining us from Jacksonville, Florida. Every week, there's a news story about this topic, and many organizations are challenged with retaining their talent. Today, I'm joined by Ton and Tricia, who are the subject matter experts on this topic. The past 2 years, both of them have been working with organizations and leadership to combat the Great Resignation and to develop leaders to lead, not to manage. So at this moment, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to turn it over to Tricia and Tonda, who will be your primary host for the remainder of our time together. Thank you. And Tonda and Tricia, it's all yours.
Thank you, Seth. Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you here with us. And guys, Tricia and I really love interactive sessions. So if you're willing, it'd be great if you want to turn your cameras on where we can see you to interact. If you're feeling shy, don't worry. We hope you will still participate and use the chat feature. Well, hello, Dean, the first courageous one. Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you so much. And we'll be using the chat feature because it's nice for us to share. Hello, Solomar. And we can learn from one another as we go through our time together this morning. All righty. Guys, we're going to be talking about, as Seth said, combating the Great Resignation and why investing in your people matters. Guys, you all feel like we invest in our people? We spend a lot of time and energy trying to hire them, attract them, recruit them, bring them up, keep them. Well, we're going to talk about some strategies today to help us address that. Tricia, if you'll flip to the next slide, that'd be great. For those of you who are in the event, some of you are just getting to know us and Competitive Solutions. We wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about who we are and what we do. We were founded in 1991. And as we specialize in helping organizations transform their businesses through process-driven solutions. When asked about what we do for work, I like to say we help good organizations get even better. That's what we're going for. In terms of our philosophy, we believe that work is a series of processes that we create and that we execute or do every day. And we believe that organizations are more likely to sustain long-term success if they have a framework in place, when there's structure and process that serves as the foundation to help them lead. And what I like about process-based leadership, or PBL, is that we help leaders create a framework to drive success. And that framework helps us make certain we don't miss anything, that we lead with purpose and intention and thought. And with the framework in place, we can focus on the content of the important work that we need to do all day. And that's what it does for us. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll notice our model, and you'll see in the upper left-hand quadrant, we were talking about process-based leadership and investing in our teams, organizational engagement, how we interact with people and get them involved, instill ownership and accountability with process-based leadership. On the upper right-hand quadrant, it's investing in your people. And this is the part of the business where we focus on developing our leaders to lead. And we're going to touch on a little bit more about that today. The bottom right, that's Visuon, or our software solution. And you'll notice it says invest in your performance. This is where you house all of that great work that you're doing, gives visibility to metrics, accountability, corrective action. It's a single source of truth to help leaders manage and lead. And in the bottom left, it's invest in your process. And this aspect of our business, our subject matter experts help organizations with Lean, Six Sigma, 5S, Kata, area information centers, and leader standard work to help drive consistency. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what we do. You'll notice we also have a number of books that have been written. They are available on Amazon, or if you'd like to read one of them, please let us know. It tells the story about process-based leadership and leading your business forward. That's a little bit about us. Now I want to share a brief snapshot of some of our clients. Here's a look at some of the clients we serve. You'll notice it covers an array of industries and a variety of shapes and sizes. We are proud and very fortunate to work with these organizations. If you're one of our clients on this webinar today, we just want to say we appreciate you. Thank you for being here and that we love working with you. We are very fortunate, guys. We enjoy working with our clients and we learn from each other every day. That's a little bit about us and about our clients. Now let's talk about what we're going to be doing for the next 30 to 40 minutes while you're with us on this webinar. Okay, we're going to talk about the Great Resignation and what you're seeing. We hope that you will help highlight what that means for you or what you're experiencing. We're going to look at flipping our perspective, right? What are we hearing about that? And then it leads us into, well, what can we do about it? So one of the things we're going to touch on this morning is providing a GPS. We're going to focus on our goals, our peoples, and our systems as we start looking as a roadmap to help us navigate work life and the times that we're in. We're going to touch on organizational strategies to help us keep our people, right? To help us retain our talent, and also touch on things that we can do as leaders in organizations to help attract talent. If all these people out in the world are resigning, well, that means some folks are looking, well, what can we do to help them choose us, right? To join our organizations. We have an assessment. We have a tool that we are going to share with you. We're going to do a quick look at it today, and then we have that available for you after the webinar to help us assess and look at how we build a high performance team and how we create a high performing work climate. So every now and then it's very good for us to take stock and say, you know, what does it feel like to work here? And how do I stay in touch with what that means? We're going to share a little bit about what our clients are doing to navigate these times. We'll take a quick look at Leadership GPS. And then before we leave today, we're hoping to ask some questions and get you thinking about what you would like to do and an action plan and some next steps to move forward as a result of the time we spent together today. We love talking about a leadership topic and then all of us deciding what's our next step. How are we going to apply what we're learning and move forward? Thank you. All right, let's talk about the Great Resignation. Right? As I love the graphic on this slide. Look at the glee in which this woman is throwing her papers in the air and saying, I quit. So what do we mean when we talk about the Great Resignation? And Seth touched on that a little bit today. The truth is about 47 million Americans left their jobs in 2021. And based on some current statistics, there are 11 million job openings in the US. And I think we had some good news yesterday. That number dropped by about 600,000. But the bottom line is there's still about 10 million, a little over 10 million job openings, and only 6 million unemployed workers. Okay. It's impacting all industries, all states, businesses of all sizes, and trying to fill jobs. And what's interesting, there have been articles in the Harvard Business Review, the Wall Street Journal, and in Fortune. And in one of those articles, they were pointing out that the Great Resignation isn't something that has happened. It is happening. It is happening now. So with that said, we wanted to ask you, what are you hearing or observing in relation to the Great Resignation, right? Has it affected you at all? So if you would, guys, those on the call, if you would like to put it in chat, there's a chat feature here, or you could unmute yourself and just talk to us. Have any of you been impacted by the Great Resignation?
Yeah, I'd like to share. I'm Solimar and from Miami, Florida. I am a registered nurse, a clinical nurse educator, and the Great Resignation has impacted the nursing profession, not only, I believe, not only in our country, but globally, especially after the pandemic. So we're really, really scrambling, and whatever we have manpower left right now working, they are so burned out. So that's why I wanted to come here. I developed a leadership program for nursing in our organization. So really interested on those approaches that we may gather from it.
So Lamar, thank you for sharing and thank you for your service. I can't even imagine working in the healthcare industry as a nurse, a physician, or in the hospital environment over the past couple of years. Thank you for helping us survive and get through the pandemic. I bet your people are tired. Please thank them for us. And we hope that we'll get some tips or things we can work on that'll help with that. I bet you have some very tired folks. And according to the statistics, that's one of the big four about why people are leaving. They're feeling burned out. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share? No, we're being shy. Guys, has anybody had a difficult time attracting people? Do any of us have job openings that we have been struggling to fill? Right? Have any of us had people resign and leave us that we would consider regrettable turnover, folks that we did not want to lose? Okay, that's some of what's happening out there. Based on some of the statistics, guys, the four major causes, as they've been tracking this, have been job openings. There are a lot of openings out there right now, so it is a great time for workers to find other jobs. Number two, Solomar, you'll appreciate this one. It was burnout, lack of work-life balance. Okay. Number three, remote work. There were some people that don't want to go back, right? They've gotten used. I think being home during the pandemic, it kind of forced a number of folks to explore the priorities in their life and what matters to them. Some have been starting new businesses. Others want to focus on their family. Some have joined the gig economy. They want to work from home. It's been very interesting to watch that. And then the fourth major cause would be priority reevaluation. And that kind of ties into the remote work, people feeling overworked, underpaid, undervalued, and it's forced them to make a change. What was interesting, there was a study, a Wiley series of studies that found that 96% of 5,000 employees agree that their manager has an impact on their well-being at work, and 42% of those said they left a job because of their manager. And I think we had a chat comment and I wanted to see that. Lisa said they're a manufacturing company and we struggle to find entry-level hourly employees. Lisa, thanks for sharing this. Some of our competitors in the area, we offered sign-on bonuses of $2,000 for a year to new employees and $2,000 for referrals. In 1 year, you didn't pay out the complete bonus at all. That is especially troublesome, Lisa. And you know what? You're not alone, though. Not that that makes you feel any better. A number of our other clients, they were showing some of the extraordinary measures that they have taken to find people and keep people. Okay. Which gives us further confirmation about why we're talking about this today. Thank you for sharing. As I was trying to see if there's anything else, most of the people that started looking, guys, have said it was pretty easy or relatively easy to find a new job. And in some cases, or many cases, they were able to get better benefits and or better pay because employers are working and doing more to try and attract and keep their people. Okay. And guys, in my world, I have a friend who's a business owner. They lost a frontline supervisor from a pretty high paying job because she didn't want to wear a mask every day. Okay, so she was willing to leave. And what was interesting about it, she walked off the job one day and then called the next day and said, you know, I've given you the night to think about it in case you want to get rid of that rule. And this was in the heart of the pandemic. In case you had a change of heart, I'll come back if you change the requirement, in which case they did not. And she is no longer employed at that organization. But priorities were not aligned and it didn't work out. So that's the Great Resignation. Trish and I wanted to challenge us to maybe look at it a little bit differently if we could, and flip over to the next. Thank you, Tricia. Flipping our perspective. Guys, do you ever feel like this guy with his head down on the computer? It's like, oh my, what are we going to do? So, because it was interesting in looking at all the research that's out there and what's happening. Harvard Business Review had an article, and it was interesting because they were saying the great exploration, that to change it from the great resignation to look at it as the great exploration. Okay, that people are looking, if our workers are out there thinking about life, reprioritizing lessons that we learned as we navigated through the pandemic, that if we reframe it and we look at it a little differently, if we can, from the great resignation to the great exploration, it gives us the opportunity to capitalize on some deep potential. If we are listening, if we embrace the exploration with empathy and support, we can position our company and our people for a renaissance where we can be on the receiving end of the great exploration. Right? So what can we do to help position ourselves to actually gain talent or keep our talent through the great resignation or the great exploration? And guys, one other statistic before we move to the next slide I wanted to share is that high performing managers, and most of us on this call, we know this, are 4 times more likely to retain employees than low performing managers. So the key for us as leaders and organizations is to discover what we can do to create high-performing leaders. Okay. And that's what we're going to transition and spend more of our time talking about today, because we want to be like the person, the guy in the graphic in the upper right hand, trying to climb up the mountain and get to the top where we can see over, but we want to explore with our people. So let's talk about what that looks like. Okay. So as an organization, what can we do? So in the next segment, we're going to transition and talk about strategies to combat so that our organizations, our teams, and our leaders can be on the receiving end of the great exploration. And with that, we're going to hand it over to Tricia to go through those strategies.
Thanks, Tonda. Hello, everybody. So I think this is the part we've all been waiting for, right? So what are those strategies and what can we do out there? And so, we might have a pretty wide range of people on this call and different audience members. You might have different types of jobs. Maybe some of you all control more strategies at the organizational, the cultural level. Maybe some of you are frontline leaders on this call wondering, what can I do in my team? And we have something for all of you to be thinking about and to put into place. So we're going to start at the highest level when we think these things through and look at strategies to combat at a very high level. And when Tonda and I think of this, we think about, leadership GPS, and we think about the G and the P and the S part of that, which is goals, people, and systems. And so thinking high level, how can we ensure, right, that we have set good direction and goals for our people? How are we sure that we've aligned personal goals with organizational purpose? And so when we look at that, do we know our people, right? Do we have one-on-ones with our people? Do we know what their aspirations are? Even if we realize this may not be their future organization or the place they're going to stay for a lifetime, how do we get the most we can get out of them right now? And so when we look at goals, right, it's all about aligning personal and organizational goals and really helping our employees set that path forward. So we want to look at and ask ourselves the question, right, what's next for both the individual and the organization? The next thing that we want to look at is people, right? And people is really all about feeling caring for and connecting with people. And so I don't know about you guys, but I know for me, I like to work in organizations, whether it's CSI, my company, or the organizations I'm working with, right? I build relationships there. I like to feel connected to the people that we're serving and that we're cared for. And we spend a lot of time at work. Right. And I'm sure you all know that, we're at work and doing work things more than we're with our families sometimes, or doing just things for our enjoyment, although we might enjoy our work as well. Right. And so with that comes that need and desire to connect, to feel like part of the team, to connect with the organization as well. And so the question that we want to ask out of this piece is, do we know as leaders, right? Either high leaders of the organization or leaders of a team or peers, do we know what it feels like to work here, right? This is our work climate. So we want to ask our people, what does it feel like to work here? We can use all types of metaphors to gather that. We like to use a weather metaphor when we're thinking that through with our clients. Is it a tornado? Is it a hurricane? Am I in the eye of the hurricane? Is it partly sunny, partly cloudy? Does management just come through and bulldoze their way through and then leave us to clean it up? What does that look like? And so when we think about that, how does it feel to work here? Our feelings about how our work environment really dictate then some of our behaviors.
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry.
And so Siri does that to me sometimes. I see some people laughing when I'm talking. I don't know. So what does it feel like to work here? And then the next thing is systems, right? And so our systems are our organizational processes, structure, methods, policies, our plans that work all together to help us get things done. And so the question we want to ask ourselves here is, do our systems interconnect in ways that support and prepare people to lead, or do they simply get in the way? Right? So are our systems blockers of these things, or are they helping us on our path forward? And so when we look at this, right, that's a very high level to think through. We're going to break it down 2 more times for you actually to think in other ways that we can look at this. So taking our goals, people, and systems into something a little bit more tangible, we have some further strategies to help us both retain, because we want to retain the people we have and keep them from resigning during this great resignation. But we also want to attract the people who are out there exploring, right? And doing that piece as well. So we have some more strategies to retain and attract talent. And so we're going to dive down a little bit deeper. If you're a senior leader, right? These are areas that you might want to consider for reevaluation. From an organizational perspective, how do we have programs, or how do we support things at these levels? If you're a frontline leader, right, is there something that you can do in these different areas, or middle manager, to help within your own individual work climate? So let's dive down and take a look. So the first thing that we want to do is really make sure that we are adaptable, right? So adapting to new work environments and technology. And so when we went through, COVID and the pandemic, as we're still in it, when we were in this and going through it, we all kind of had that break where all of a sudden everybody's working from home, right? And so very quickly, we had to be able to get everybody working from home, set up these home offices. And we found out that really a lot of work can be done outside of the work environment. Now, for some people, they enjoyed that. They loved it. They're like, this is the best day ever, right? I can throw a load of laundry in while getting my work done, and I have more balance. And that's great for me. For others, they really missed social connection and some of those other things and couldn't wait to get back into that work environment, right? And so it's very independent, people dependent on what they like. But when we think about this, right, we still need to consider and adapt to the new work environment. This makes us ask questions, right? Looking at open space environments, who do they work for? Who do they not work for, with concentration and effort levels? What about a hybrid work environment? Do we have opportunity for that, where we can do part-time from home, part-time in the office, right? And so when working from home, what are some of the rules that we want to put around that really need to be in place as well to make it most effective? And so we need to adapt to new work environments and new technology that's out there, and be willing to question and ask ourselves, do our people really need to be in on site or at the office, or is this more about me as a leader, right? Do I need to be thinking about trust or something else to ensure that this is effective and happening? The next thing that we want to do for strategies is to develop a growth mindset culture. And so I'm not sure how familiar all of you are with growth mindset and what's that all about, but it's really the idea of kind of switching and flipping. It's very positive kind of culture. It's a very innovative type of culture, but it's one where we say, how can we, right? And so developing this culture where we're looking for learning and looking for a no failure sort of mentality, right? And so we don't fail, we learn. And so how can we develop a culture where people are continuing to learn? People coming up in the workforce are used to this. They're used to schooling that supports these things. So this is something in our workplace, if we want to attract and retain individuals, we have to look at our culture and does it support growth mindset, right? That idea that we're here to learn and continuing to evolve. The next thing we want to do is engage our people, your people, in discovering their wants and needs, right? And so many times what Tanda and I see when we're in a work environment is we as leaders or at the top levels, we decide their wants and needs for them, right? We put strategies and programs and all of these other things in place for them, give them coffee machines, put pinball machines, not pinball machines, foosball tables out in the office space for them and decide this is what people want, right? This is what they crave. And we don't stop to ask, right? Is this what you want? Is this helping? Is this making you more happier? Does this make this work environment the thing that you desire to be at? Or is something else out there that you want? So we want to engage people. That means talk to them, right? There's no other way besides talking to people that we can get this information. So we need to talk with our people to discover their wants and needs. The next thing that we want to look at and do is make sure we're providing opportunities for social and emotional connection. Right. And so this is very, very high on the list. People want to feel connected, right? They desire social engagement. We're social beings. And of course, we're going to have people that are more introverted than others and people that are way more extroverted than others. But what this is about the opportunity to find like-minded people, right? And so whether it's a business topic that we're like-minded about, whether it's, something organizationally that we're like-minded about, whether it's a development group that we're like-minded about, or something about our culture, right? Any of those types of things help us to build engagement and help us to build social and emotional connection to the organizations that we serve. Invest is the next thing, right? We want to invest in innovative leader development. And so what we mean by this is, yes, it's great to invest in leader development, but what's different? What's new? Is it the same old leader development that we've always done? Right. And so many times, we don't want to put people through a same class again where they feel like I'm never going to learn something. Right. So what's innovative, that's hot, that's new, that's out there now, that's going to change our perspective just a little bit. Support is the next thing. So we want to support leaders through mentoring and coaching. So if we don't have good mentoring programs or coaching programs out there now, we want to think about how can we incorporate that into our organizations. We also want to build our bench strength. And so when we think about building our bench strength, people are looking for career paths, right? They want to know, what is my career path here? Am I topped out? Is there a place for me to go? What does it look like? What if I want to move over there? What is required of that, right? And so these are all things that it's important for us as organizations. People leave oftentimes because they don't see this. Right? They don't know how to get to the next place. They don't understand what the path is. They don't have these conversations. They're not connected and all these other things. So we want to make sure we're building our bench strength, but also letting people know, what does a path look like, right? Who's next? So if we do have somebody who leaves the organization, not only do they leave on a positive note and become a brand ambassador for us, encouraging other people to work there, right? But we have someone to backfill that position. And then lastly, we want to understand our work climate and our reputation. And so when we think about this, again, it goes back to asking people, what does it feel like to work here? What is the work climate? There can be multiple work climates, which ultimately informs the culture of the organization, but we want to understand our work climate. What do we as our teams like about our work climate, whether we're at the highest level, we have work climates up there, or frontline level teams, or anywhere in between, or cross-functional teams, right? They each have their own individual work climate. So what does that look like to us, right? And then how does work climate in an organization impact our overall reputation? And so when we're thinking about reputation, that's what people say, right? That's what people post. That's what they tell their friends, right? So whether this is a good place to work, and I would recommend to all my friends and get that bonus money out there too, right? That people are trying to deliver to drive people to work to our place. But we need to understand that work climate and furthermore, our reputation. We want that positive reputation. We want people to come to work for us because they're getting these other things on this list. So with that said, we now want to take a minute to drill down a little bit further, right? And so Tana and I have broken this down a little bit more to say, well, if we want these positive work climates, what does a high performance work environment or work climate look like? So what are teams doing in these perspectives? So we're going to pause here and give you a minute on each of these slides to there's 2 of them. So I'm going to go through one and then I'll go through the next one. And we want to just ask you and put it out there. You can write in the chat or you can take your mic off and speak to it. What jumps out at you on this? This is also an assessment that we will provide after the call is over for you. So I'll pause for a minute, and if anybody wants to speak and tell us what jumps out at you.
Guys, think through what your organization or your team does well, and maybe one that might be an opportunity for you that you could improve.
I'd like to share what I'm thinking. The one that really, as I read through on all of this, our organization has all of those. And I think the problem is, for me, what it stood out is the engage in timely, honest, and open dialogue.
Mm.
It's very simple if you look at it, right? Connection, individual, but and again, I'm talking about nursing. That's where I work, because they're so burnt out. They just enough already. I am here to take care of my patients. I don't have enough time to take care of my patients. Do I really have to go to that? So that, as I listen to you guys, all these tips, it's in my organization, but what I'm looking at, that hopefully I can get something out of this webinar, is really, the organization is there, but it's about really engaging them because they're tired. They're tired. Like, is it mandatory? Like if it is mandatory, okay, all right, I'll go, kicking and screaming, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm not rating the nursing profession. I see them. I've been, I practiced nursing halfway across the world, from a third world country to a very rich country, Canada and here. And it's the same thing, but it's worse. And especially after the pandemic, nurses are burnt out. They just are like, I'm here to take care of my patients. Don't bother me with something else, so that's like, you wanted to engage them, but they said, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
That's their thing.
Well, I think, Solimar, what's interesting about that one too is what, when they're saying, is this mandatory? It's what else they're actually trying to say to us, right? It's that conversation, that more in-depth conversation that we're maybe not having with individuals on the team, because there's a question behind that question. When they're saying, is it mandatory? They're really saying, right, I'm burnt out. I'm tired. This is just one more thing. Where's the value in it for me? Can you tell me the value first? Right. And so when we think about that timely, honest, and open dialogue, that's some of the things we're talking about. Thank you for sharing. And so anybody else have something from this worksheet here, which is really just an assessment to look at your team, right? And some of the things you either think your team does well or not well. And I'll flip to the next page too, because there's more. And yes, Danielle, we will be making some of this available afterwards. What about this one? I know what we have seen a lot, and one of the things we've been getting a lot of calls around actually is engaging in trust building activities and behaviors and taking risks. So there's been a lot of discussion out there. I know a lot of our clients have reached out to us about trust, about building trust within teams. I don't know if it's being away and then coming back into the office. I don't know what's impacted it, but it seems to be a lot more popular in developing that psychological safety within teams. Is this a safe environment for me to speak my mind? Right? That seems to come up again and again and again. Anybody else see anything from here that they would like to share? Maybe you think your team is doing well. share with other people, or something you think your team might need to work on? Okay, so when we typically do this in organizations, I'll let you guys ponder it. I know it's a lot to think about, and we will get these assessments out there so that you guys can look at them within your team, and not only take them yourself, right, from your perspective to your team, but when they're really impactful and useful is when we give it to our team as well, right? And we say, what do you think about these? Are these behaviors that we do as a team, right? And how we typically work with clients and individuals as we say, you know what, if we're low on this, how could we within our team make some changes so that we can develop this skill set a little bit more? Because high performing teams, they're really able to do this and these kinds of things, right? And this is what Tanda and I spend a lot of time coaching leaders and individuals on different behaviors around all of these things. When people tell us the stories, right? They tell us this, do the storytelling about their team, about their work environment, what they're looking for, why they might leave an organization or a team. It ultimately narrows down into all of this work climate stuff, how it feels like to work there, whether they feel supported, right? Whether they feel like their ideas are valued, whether they feel like there's an innovation, whether they feel like there's collaboration, whether it's safe to take risks, right? Or they have to fear about what might happen to them, whether it's a positive work environment, a not so positive work environment. We have diverse thoughts or perspectives, or we don't have diverse thoughts or perspectives. Accountability is another big one, right? Do I feel like I'm always doing everything for the team? Or do I feel like people are stepping up? Do I see my leader holding other people accountable, right? Do we support one another? You know, if I'm stressed out and I'm overworked, does somebody step up to help support me, right? Do I understand how I fit into the organization, that larger purpose? Are we clear about it? So many times, one of the things that comes up again and again and again on expectations when we do those lists and reviews is, you know, my leader setting the vision for the team and helping us and aligning us on it and making sure it's absolutely clear and that we're holding people accountable, right? And so when we look at these things, these are some of the things that we want to look at to say, if I want to avoid the Great Resignation, what is the work climate like within our teams, in our organizations, and are we giving people the support and the environment that that they're in to make them not want to leave, right? So how do we get there when the grass isn't greener on the other side and we say, you know what, even though things might be tough here sometimes, and yes, everybody has a bad day, I've got support of all of my colleagues and peers around here. I believe in the purpose of the organization. I also believe how we're connected in that larger perspective. And this is a place I want to stay, that I'm going to call home. So with that, we thought we would take a minute to just share with you some things that some of our clients are doing out there. I was reading something in the chat here. Jacqueline, I agree. And like the essence of each behavior listed, where do you see the leadership commitment to the strategy and purpose falling under? In other words, which of the lines in the checkup covers it? I might have missed it, right? And so I think it's that first one where it says clear about their purpose and how they, in the second one, how they fit into the larger organization. They feel like they're a stakeholder. So that would be the first two. It's going to be on slide 10. Okay. All right, so let's take a look then. So we believe leadership is a journey and not a destination. And so that's really, you know, our big premise on all of this. And so we wanted to share with you some things that some of our clients are doing because they've really stepped back and they've looked at leadership development just a little bit differently than how they've historically looked at it. And so one of the things that we see out there that, you know, these really great companies are doing right now is, you know, they're looking at it differently and they're saying, how do we move this needle? Because we do a lot of training. We do a lot of leadership development training. We do a lot of courses, right? And so the move is away from inconsistent management training. And so what do we mean by that? We mean these one-off courses. Oh, my team has a whatever problem, right? We don't deal with transition or change very well. So let's get a course and take care of that, right? Or we've got a trust issue. So let's get a course or a session or a 1 hour, whatever, right? Or put them on a webinar or have them read a book or whatever, so we can deal with this trust issue, or maybe they think, we're not as focused on just some basic communication skills that we want to need. So let's get some assessments out there. Let's do some communication skill training, and that's going to solve everything. And so what we see oftentimes in organizations is we piecemeal leadership development, right? And so what we found is, the really good ones are taking a step back and we're saying, that doesn't seem to be working for us. And so how do we instead use some sort of structured, focused, and integrated leadership development, a longer term program, right? That's really helping people move along this leadership journey and path that's defined. And it goes to the next thing, right? So we're going to define it. What does good look like? And we're going to design content around what our organization says each of your organizations says are the essential leadership attributes and competencies to perform and work well here. Right. And so good organizations do that. They look at that and they look at how do different attributes fit into our culture? What's the most important things for our organization and our culture here? And then they will deploy leadership training that matches that, right? In a manner that impacts us at the individual level, the team level, but ultimately at the organizational level too, as we use those skills to influence up and out. And then the last thing that they do is they appreciate, right? They will appreciate where people are today and provide some sort of intentional path forward. And so what does this mean? Everybody's at a different place, right? And so within leadership courses or programs out there, we might have people who are, they just got signed up for their first leadership position. And so they're struggling with how to do something, but I might have a seasoned leader in there as well, right, that can also offer some advice, some tidbits, or looks at the content from the perspective of, hey, you know what, this isn't good, like brush it off and start thinking about it again, because even though I know that, I don't necessarily do that, right? And so it's really important for us to think about that, appreciate people where they are, and know that everybody can continue on a journey. We can have structure, we can have guidelines, we can have expectations, but everybody will move at their own place. And good organizations, they know that and they encourage that and they're okay with that. All right, so some other things that people do. We have a list of components to think about. So if you're thinking about, okay, how do I put some sort of leadership programs in place? And we're not talking only about formal leaders when we talk about leadership development, right? We're talking about all those influencers out there. We have individual contributors that have very, very high ability to influence parts of the organization and people. And so we want to bring them into the fold as well. But when we're talking about creating a positive work climate, when we're talking about these different things, we believe there's leaders at all levels and in every job, right? And so good elements of any type of leadership program include some of the following things, right? We do 360 assessments, because we want to help people gain insight on how do I see myself versus how do others see me? And then what kinds of things can I put into place? What types of goals should I be setting to help me achieve that, right? This forms the foundation for the learning on any type of program or journey they're going to go on. They use integrated methods of instruction. And so when we think about this, right, this is integrated with less lecture and more activity, right? And so when we think about the learning and development scale, many of us know that the more active the learning is, the higher the probability that it will actually be put into place and kept going, right? And so we want to move things from the place where we're just passive learners, right? Everybody can read a book, right? I can read a book about playing golf, but can I actually play golf? Probably not. I used the total wrong analogy and started saying hockey things last time I did that. But, can we actually do the sport? So there's a difference between reading about something and executing on something, right? And then when we have to teach it to somebody else, our ability to deliver on that goes up even higher. And so we want to make sure that we're doing things along the way that really integrate learning into the most active way possible. And then coaching is another thing to follow up with, right? And so this really helps individuals close any type of performance gaps that they may be having, but also works on shifts in mindsets and perceptions, right? And so oftentimes people will work with a coach alongside whatever they're learning to really think about behaviors that they're doing, think about ways to shift, and make decisions that they already know is things they should be doing anyways, right? And so they'll work with coaches to help them move forward instead of being restrained or held back. And then the last thing that good organizations do, or people that are doing leadership programs, is they think about a sustainability plan, right? And this is tied to that first thing on the other page, which is the fact that we don't want to do piecemeal training, right? We want to think about how are we building, growing, and grooming leaders for the future? And then what's the sustainability plan for that? How do we keep it going, right? How do we then have them teach and impart knowledge? How do we take it to the next level? If, in whatever leadership program or journey, they got the intro level, or maybe the intro level or intro level 2, how do we continue that as they progress in their career as well? And so we want to think about how to sustain any type of program that we invest in as an organization financially, but also that our employees invest in with their time and their growth and their development. So how do we keep that going? So those are things that you would want to consider if you're investing in any type of leadership development program that will help you retain and attract other employees. And then the last thing we have here on this slide is really just a look at, topics. So when we think about leadership topics, right, we think about what are some of the things that people strive to learn or to engage in. And so a good program will encompass different topics that are fitting for your organization. And we have some here listed on this page. All right. So what we wanted to ask you guys as we round this out, because we always like people to walk away with action. That's kind of how Tanda and I roll with things. So as you sit back and you reflect on the time that we spent together, we would like for you to think about what have you uncovered today, right, that will help you take full advantage of the great exploration. So take a moment, write yourself a note, something that you want to maybe look at further or explore. And then we'd also like you to think about what's your action for that starting point, right? And so if we think about everything that you listened to today, what would you like to explore a little further, and what action would you take? And with that, we would like to open it up. We'll let you just answer that personally, but we would like to open up for any questions that you might have, or if you want to share what you learned or your action, you may do that as well. I think we have some things in chat. Okay.
Patricia, this is Joaquin. Thank you for taking the questions via the chat. And on Tanda, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you for, I think the comment you posted there was related to the question I had asked. So thank you for that. I had just posted on the chat, I recently have noticed that several sources are trying to make a distinction between quote unquote training, traditional training and development. I think based on what you shared, I'm assuming the methodology that you have with the class and the coaching and all that stuff is the difference. But we're so used to the word training. I'm just trying to maybe your perspective on how to make that distinction better. Because again, I just recently have noticed it in other sources.
Yeah. I can take that. And then if Tanda, if you want to add to it, you're certainly welcome to. So Yeah, I think that we really see that as a difference. I know we have been moving towards that, and it's the distinction between doing one-off things, because typically what we find when we work with anybody in any organization, we get called, hey, can you deliver a training, right, on X? And we go in and we do the training on X, and we try to set a good call up in the first place to really understand what's going on. But when we get in there and we do the training, we realize, there's really other issues there. And when we develop programs like Leadership GPS, and really we customize it for organizations, right? So we have a big list of different things that we do, training topics, and it depends on the length and the commitment and all of those other types of things. But when we're looking at the other one, a program that we're instituting builds on one another. Right. And so we don't do like a class just on XYZ, but we're doing a series of classes in a specific order and way that tend to build on one another to really develop the leader more holistically. Right. And so we might start by understanding and discovering stuff about yourself, which is a good first step to then working with your team. And so when we're thinking about leader development, it's really hard to work with work climate in your team if you don't have a good handle on who you are. Right. And so we might also work on things like emotional intelligence with individuals, because if we don't have a good handle on our emotions and how we respond versus react, it's really hard to enter into feedback or change in transition management or any types of other things. And so I don't know if that distinguishes it for you or not, but that's really kind of the difference.
I like how he asks questions, and I think it's how we integrate the development with other systems that you have in place, and whether that's stretch assignments for your people, how we track that team performance. So it is more holistic. It's taking a broader view of how we are developing our people. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, shares? Anybody have an aha?
Or anything you've done that you implemented that you wanted to share with other folks on the call. We love hearing your best practices.
Okay, we'll turn it back over to Seth.
Tonda and Tricia, thank you so much. That was just excellent information. You gave a lot of content in a short amount of time. So thank you for doing that. Everyone that has joined us, a couple of things. One, we recorded this, so this will be available later on our website. And then also we will get to everyone that participated today a copy of the evaluation that Tonda and Tricia shared. So you can kind of take that back to your team to discuss it, share it, and look at what are some of our areas of strength, but then also what are some areas of opportunity. And we would love to continue the conversations. You saw on the title slide, there's our contact information. So we look forward to speaking with each of you later on this month. Have a great afternoon. We look forward to talking with you again. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.